Welcome, Trilon supporters. This is my friend Jonathan Hertzberg, who I introduced you to a few weeks ago. Jonathan is the head curator at Kino Lorber Repertory. Welcome, Jonathan. Thanks for meeting with me.
Thanks. Thank you, John. And hello again, Trilon supporters. Very happy to be with you again. And happy to talk Kino Lorber Repertory or whatever else you want to talk about, John.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me about when people ask you about what is repertory.
What is repertory?
Yeah, how do you describe that?
Well, repertory would be it's a back catalog. It's basically like what you have in your sort of stored up, what you have on offer. And
right.
Kino Lorber, Kino International before that has built up quite a large deep back catalog over its existence for over 40 years. Now, of course, a lot of titles come in and out of license, but Kino's always been, and we certainly are now, very focused on acquiring both new titles, so contemporary films, as well as older titles, which are often now sort of made new again when they're restored. So
yeah, because we get the question a lot. I'll say the Trilon is a repertory cinema, and people just stare at me like, "What does that mean?"
Really?
And you can often be like, well, it's old movies, right? But it's not. Repertory it's got a long history, especially in New York,
yeah,
where Kino's based,
Yeah, well, for sure. And I mean, it also has like a longer, I think, history when you're talking about theater, specifically, more maybe that's a slightly different connotation than what it's come to be known as for film or cinema.
Sure.
But I think there is some commonality there, because I feel like I think that in theater it's like alluding to classic, sort of established theatrical theater, works of
right. You're not premiering new works by artists now. If you're doing repertory, you're doing older pieces and making them new again with a new performance, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that
sounds right.
And that to me sounds like what Kino Lorber Repertory is really good at. You guys are really good at finding films that sort of need to be reintroduced,
right,
in a way.
Right. Well, definitely a lot of what we do and other companies that do the similar things, other distributors do, like us, is there's the classic titles that everyone knows and which are high value titles.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other titles which are more obscure for a variety of reasons. And they may be very worthwhile titles, but they're not as well known. They're not as firmly established as as part of canon.
Right.
And so and there's there's competition for those titles which are canonical. So
right.
It's actually, so by necessity, I think you have to be able to look under different rocks than your competitors, and find some things that people don't know as much about, but which are, more than worthy of being restored and reintroduced. And that's fun. I mean,
yeah.
I've gotten to do that a number of times now in this position. And I think that's the most satisfying part. It's not that much different than, it's a form of programming. I mean, it's the way that you and I are, sort of running parallel in a way, because we're curating a back catalog, curating a repertory line. It's a form of taste making, if you will, and you do the same thing as a programmer, because you're saying, because people are looking to you as someone who's really, you know, a little more informed than the average person, and you're sort of entrusted with this pretty, you know, pretty fun and pretty cool, and I think valuable task of sort of finding some of those things that other people might not know about, or they might not know. They might know maybe about the film, but they might not know about where to look for it.
Right. Well, yeah,
and that's what we both do that.
Right.
We're both, a lot of times, I have people who, you know, exhibitors asking me, "Oh, do you guys have this film, or how can I book this film, or where is this film?"
Right.
And it requires a lot of the same searching, or you know, or just kind of the same tools that we use to try to find.
Right. Well, and
it's
interesting because it's such a rare position that you're in. You know, there's not very many people in the country or the world doing exactly what you're doing. I mean, programming is similar. Like, there's not.
Right.
You're hunting down things. You're finding ways to source them and show them. And for you, you're hunting down things. You're trying to find negatives, like anything you can find to use to make a restoration, to make something available again.
Right. You need to find the rights holder first.
Yeah.
There's a rights holder. I mean, some titles are in the public domain. So in the case, if it's the case where there's not, you don't need to acquire a license because the movie's in the public domain, the next step, whether, you know, you have that license or you don't need that, is to find materials, because sometimes the rights holder doesn't actually have the necessary elements, the source elements that you need.
Which we run into all the time for exhibition as well, right? Like, people will own the rights to something but have no materials.
Right.
So
they have something that's just not usable.
Right. So then you're finding a new source. That's right.
Yeah. So, and then sometimes things are brought to us, you know, because we're a known distributor. So there are sales agents and sales companies that hold the rights to vast amounts of films, big catalogs of international films. So these are like not studio films per se, but some major films of the, you know, basically maybe more international films. Those types of entities, representatives will come to us with a catalog to say, you know, look at all these avails that we have for your territory. And sometimes you find a diamond in the rough in one of those lists, and that's how we found Babylon, for instance.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Neat. Really neat. I loved that movie, by the way. That movie was so special, and it was really great.
Yeah, that's one of those, that's like a unicorn.
Yeah.
That's a rare situation where, you know, where it all comes together in terms of, it's a really worthwhile film that has commercial elements, that's actually very marketable, but for whatever reason just hadn't come out here before. So it has it has some kind of mainstream appeal, and it's really good, and it hasn't come out here before, meaning it hadn't had a proper release in the United States. So that meant that it hadn't really had all of that standard press coverage that a film would get if it had a theatrical release. Right. So meaning that even though this movie was 40 years old or thereabouts, we were able to release it like it was a new film. And so it got all this great press, New York Times review. You know, that's kind of the gold standard. If a movie hasn't had a Times review, that's kind of special, because it still does, even in this day and age, you know, and even with certain political figures consistently, you know, degrading or attacking that publication, it still means a lot. Like, I think there's still look, a lot of our audience is an older audience that still reads print media, that still reads the New York Times and listens to NPR. So, so those types of media channels still have a lot of sway, in the same way that like old school marketing, like a good trailer and a good poster still holds sway.
A good trailer goes a long ways.
Yeah.
I noticed that with our audience in a big way. Like if we get a release that's a restoration with a really nice trailer, I'll bet that attendance is 20% better on that film than it would be on one that we're just trying to push on our own, you know?
Wow. Well,
huge.
Yeah. And we try to, and that's something we try to do at Kino is, you know, even though we don't have the same budget behind, usually behind a repertory title that we get from one of our newer films, we still will try to have those assets like a trailer and have a poster to sort of it gives people the impression, and rightly so, that this is like getting a real release, or this is like a real theatrical release. And it still, as we've just discussed, it still goes a long way towards selling a film. And they're fun to create too, you know?
Well, which brings us to The Gray Fox, which I was hoping to release this summer at the theater, and hoping to give that like a weekend this summer at the Trilon. And instead, you know, there is no summer. So what about this film, The Gray Fox? Like, what captures you when you're looking at this vast amount of titles you can release? What's the one about this one that grabs it?
Well, I have to be completely forthcoming here, in that The Gray Fox is not one that I can really take credit for in the same way that I can, say, Babylon or The Wanderers at Kino Lorber. The Gray Fox is a title that was acquired by my colleague Frank Tarzi, who heads up our Kino Lorber Studio Classics home video line. And the restoration was done by my other colleague Brett Wood, who is kind of like our in-house restoration expert. And he oversees most of the restorations for a lot of our silent titles, for instance. He's kind of like the Kino Classics is kind of his his end of the home video end of things. So we've got Kino Lorber Studio Classics, and we've got Kino Classics. And then plus we have Kino Lorber, which is all the more contemporary So with Brett or Frank's titles, which The Gray Fox is one, where it's sort of both of theirs, it falls to me to try to put together some kind of theatrical release of the film prior to its eventual digital release on subscription VOD platforms, transactional VOD platforms, and then home video. So Gray Fox came to me from my colleagues, but it's a good example of the type of, this was a film that was out of circulation for many years. I mean, maybe 20 years. I don't know. I think there may have been a DVD early in the DVD life cycle. Maybe. I'm not totally sure.
I remember renting the VHS.
Well, it was definitely on VHS.
A long time ago.
This was a film that was very widely released in its day, 1982, 83. It was presented by Zoetrope, which is Francis Coppola's company. So they really liked the film, and they offered to the filmmakers to put Zoetrope Presents on it. And it was, a major release, and it was released by United Artists Classics in the US. And it got really good reviews by all the major outlets. Richard Farnsworth was nominated for a Golden Globe. And the movie was a staple on cable and VHS in that whole era. And then, as I said, I guess like a lot of films, they fall out of license. It was not a major studio film, so it fell out of license. And as I said, I think there may have been a DVD early on, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But even so, if it was, it's long out of print and kind of a collector's item. So the movie was kind of laying dormant. And you know, one way or another, my colleague Frank found out about it or knew about the possibility of acquiring it, and so Kino acquired the film, and actually we acquired the film outright. It's not a license, so we actually own the film worldwide now.
Yeah, nice.
Which is rare for us, but it means that we can we can sort of oversee its dissemination around the world, make, you know, deals for it in other territories. But launching the film, even in this sort of hybrid theatrical that we're doing now, the virtual theatrical, this launch of the film in that way will hopefully get it some press attention and get it some buzz that a film won't get if you just put it on video, or you just put it on a streaming platform like Amazon. It's just not going to get noticed. So that's why we do this. That's why we are still devoted to the theatrical model, or in this case, the virtual theatrical model. Yeah. But everything else will follow from that. Hopefully, you know, get some nice retrospective press, and that will help fuel or feed the life of the film as it moves from theatrical to digital to home video, and perhaps TV even, and around the world in other territories, because it's been out of circulation pretty much everywhere. So
tell me a little bit about this Kino Marquee, right? This is the virtual platform that you guys have created to sort of work with theaters?
Right. So we built it on the back of our Kino Now streaming platform, which is our TVOD platform.
Okay.
Which is transactional VOD, transactional video on demand. So
Sure.
we already had this Kino Now. We already had this kind of template or hardware in place that we had built. And so Kino Marquee is our attempt to you know, keep theatrical business going. Even though physical brick and mortar theaters are closed, it gives people an opportunity to view one of our films through a virtual screening room, which is connected to their local theater. So this way, Twin Cities, you know, residents like Gray Fox is going to be available at other theaters online as well. But our hope is that if you're a Trilon supporter, of course, then you will go to the Trilon's link and and help support your local theater, the Trilon in this case, and it helps, you know, support us too. That's why I still have a job right now during this very uncertain time. So yeah, it was really an attempt for us to keep our theatrical business going, because it's a huge part of our business. Our company is actually kind of unique in that we are still very much devoted to theatrical, and not a day and date model where you have like a theatrical timed to a VOD release. I mean, we really are still committed to a theatrical model where it's only playing in theaters. So in this case, some of these films, or all of these films on Kino Marquee, are only available on Kino Marquee. And we need you guys to be back whenever we're actually back, you know, in whatever form that takes. We need the Trilon and all the other great independent art house cinemas around the country to be able to still be there when everything, hopefully, or, you know, when things are safe enough and we're back open.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, you're why we do what we do.
Right. And we can't do it without you, right? Like it's this very symbiotic relationship. And absolutely. Well, good luck in New York. I'm sure things have been rough, but they're getting better. And good luck. And I'm really looking forward to not only watching this movie again with people, but seeing you in person at someday again. Should be good.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. Well, yeah, it will be soon. Hopefully sooner rather than later. I'd love to see you on the Upper West Side again.
Absolutely. All right.
Thank you guys for supporting us and playing the Gray Fox, and thank you Trilon viewers for watching it in this admittedly unorthodox way. And I will also want to let you know that eventually, because we do get a lot of questions about this, the film will be available on Blu-ray and DVD. It's been restored. It looks beautiful. But you guys will get to see it first on Kino Marquee.
Excellent. Thanks, Jonathan. I appreciate it.
Thanks, John. Take care.
What kind of work do you do, Bill?
I rob stagecoaches.
I know about where you've been. I frankly don't have much use for your kind.
Is that you, Nat?
Yep. I think we're being robbed.
You're being robbed. I'm much less worldly than you think.
Are you indeed?
Man my age, the future don't mean too much unless you're maybe thinking about next week. I realize something about myself. I've got ambitions in me that just won't quit.